Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. According to Michael Bisping, Oleksander Usyk's K2 promoter Alex Krasuk stated that there's a 70% chance Usyk's next fight will be at heavyweight debut against either Alexander Povetkin or Luis King Kong Ortiz. That is a huge revelation, and I think that would be great whether he faces Alexander Povetkin or if he would face Luis Ortiz. I understand that he has a close relationship with Alexander Povetkin. He showed up to the Joshua versus Povetkin fight. These guys had talked before and after the fight, and it's a good thing that these guys have that type of respect and relationship towards each other. I understand from the knowledge that I've seen in the news is that Alexander Povetkin has been angling for a Dillian Whyte fight should Dillian Whyte not get Anthony Joshua. So that leads me to surmise that the most likely opponent, should he make this move to heavyweight next, would be a King Kong Luis Ortiz. There's a few things I find funny about that matchup. First is that I thought King Kong Luis Ortiz is the boogeyman. No one ever wants to fight him. But you have to understand that he's not a boogeyman, and people do want to fight Luis Ortiz, but there needs to be an incentive or reason for it. You see, Luis Ortiz is not a huge name. He's not a huge name that's going to get you millions of dollars in a fight. That's not the benefit that Oleksander Usyk would get from facing Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz is not a world champion. He would not get any belts from facing Luis King Kong Ortiz. So what reason would Oleksander Usyk would want to face a guy like Luis Ortiz? Is because Luis Ortiz is a good fighter, a very technically sound fighter, and he's a great name to have on your resume. That's what Luis Ortiz, and he's great experience moving up to heavyweight, showing that you can compete with these guys in the heavyweight division. So I think that's what makes sense for Oleksander Usyk. And to break down that matchup between Usyk versus Ortiz, I think just looking at it from the outside, unbiased perspective, if you look at the dimensions of the fighters first, Luis Ortiz is listed as 39 years old, 6'4", with a 78-inch reach. Now, if you look at Usyk on the other hand, he's 31 years old, 6'3", with a 78-inch reach. So they're almost about the same size, but nowhere near the same weight. Usyk is a much more versatile fighter. He can fight in a myriad of styles, and he's much younger. He's also an undefeated fighter compared to a Luis Ortiz, who's been stopped by Deontay Wilder in the 10th round back in 2018. So let's just be honest. Luis Ortiz has never faced this type of opponent who can move, who has the skills and talent of an Oleksander Usyk. So if we're going to be unbiased and breaking down the matchup, looking at the dimensions, looking at the weight, the size, and the age, youth, of all the things that contribute to make Usyk and Luis Ortiz a great fight, I would have to heavily favor Oleksander Usyk because I see Usyk has too many tools in his toolbox, too many skills. I just believe he's a much better all-around fighter, and with the youth, I think all those things would be a hindrance for King Kong Luis Ortiz. Now, by any means, that doesn't mean that Luis Ortiz couldn't be competitive or couldn't win that fight. I just don't believe that he would. I think that we've seen Luis Ortiz gas out against a guy like Deontay Wilder. We've seen him breathing heavily. I mean, you see he just went 10 rounds with a Travis Kaufman. Who's Travis Kaufman to Oleksander Usyk? You know, you're going to have a lot of fanboys saying, no, Luis Ortiz would do this and do that. He would stop him in 2 rounds or whatever. They don't want to give Usyk the credit. But I have to be unbiased and honest about it. I have to give Oleksander Usyk the credit. And this is why I have to give Usyk the credit. Because if he couldn't stop Travis Kaufman in any point in that fight, they went the full 10 rounds. You don't think that Usyk is going to be slick enough to drag him into deep waters and exhaust Luis Ortiz? I absolutely believe he'll be able to do so. Luis Ortiz was dragged into deep waters by lesser competition. Explain Travis Kaufman to me if you say that Usyk can't do it. And then we look further on Luis Ortiz's resume. Malik Scott dragged him the full 12 rounds. Explain that to me. None of these guys have the accomplishment, status, or boxing skill or ability that Oleksander Usyk has. So a lot of guys will be quick to write off Oleksander Usyk, but if we're being honest and unbiased, he's probably the most skilled fighter that Luis Ortiz has ever faced, amateur or pro. And I think that this will make for a very interesting fight. Luis Ortiz has very heavy hands, which could give Oleksander Usyk problems. And if he connects enough times, he could definitely put Usyk down. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a blowout or a dominating win one way or the another. But I think that Usyk should have enough skills and tools in the toolbox to be able to thoroughly defeat Luis King Kong Ortiz. You know, you're going to have a lot of biased media channels and fanboys such as Dante's Bias Nation, Bias Ego, and these LWBC fangirls that are going to fanboy for, you know, Luis Ortiz. But if we're being honest and unbiased about it, we look at guys' skills. We don't look at their race. We don't, you know, we don't do any of that. So if we're going to look at it just 100% accurately, skills pay the bills. And Luis Ortiz has skills, but at the same time, he has weight issues. He has, you know, stamina issues, and he's much older. We don't believe he'd be able to compete. Once again, it's the IBFP.